Okay, so get this. What if I told you there's like a hidden link between what you eat and serious mental health conditions like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and even Alzheimer's?
Whoa.
You probably think I've been spending a little too much time on the internet, right?
Yeah, probably.
But the science is emerging, and it's all about these tiny powerhouses in our cells, mitochondria.
That's right. And you've actually provided us with some pretty fascinating material for this deep dive.
Oh, good.
We've got research articles. We've got expert opinions from Dr. Chris Palmer, a Harvard psychiatrist. He's really making waves in this field.
Yeah, he is.
And even insights from how the ketogenic diet is used to treat epilepsy.
Yeah, so our mission today is to unpack all of this, uncover the surprising connections, and get to those key takeaways.
Absolutely.
Think of it as your shortcut to understanding this exciting, rapidly evolving field.
I like that.
But first, let's talk about Dr. Palmer. His personal story is a great way to understand how powerful this connection can be.
Absolutely. Dr. Palmer wasn't always a proponent of using diet to treat mental illness. Right.
He actually struggled with his own mental and physical health for years.
Really?
OCD, depression, even metabolic syndrome in his 20s.
Wow.
Imagine being a doctor, knowing all the right things to do, but still struggling.
Yeah. It definitely makes you realize that sometimes the answers aren't as simple as we think.
Right.
So what changed for Dr. Palmer?
Well, after years of struggling, he decided to experiment with the Atkins diet.
Okay.
High protein, super low carb, the drill.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is that the results went way beyond just weight loss.
Wait, so the Atkins diet helped with his mental health?
Exactly. He found that his OCD symptoms drastically improved, his energy levels soared, and he just felt better overall.
Wow.
And this sparked a huge question in his mind. Could this dietary approach actually be used to treat mental illness in his patients? Okay, that's a light bulb moment if I've ever heard one. And I'm guessing that's what led him to explore the connection between metabolic disorders and mental health.
You got it. What Dr. Palmer discovered in his clinical practice is that metabolic disorders, especially insulin resistance, are shockingly common in people with all sorts of mental illnesses. And we're not just talking about depression and anxiety. He saw this pattern in patients with bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, the whole spectrum.
That's huge. It suggests a way deeper connection between our metabolism and how our brains work than we ever thought, right?
Right. For a long time, we thought of mental illness as purely a brain problem.
Yeah.
But what if the brain is actually sending us signals about a deeper metabolic issue? That's what Dr. Palmer started to investigate.
Okay, but where does the ketogenic diet fit into all of this? I know it's super trendy for weight loss, but it sounds like it's way more than that.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is that the ketogenic diet wasn't even originally designed for weight loss.
Oh, really?
It was developed way back in 1921 to treat epilepsy.
No way. Seriously, that long ago?
Yep. And the results were amazing. Studies showed that 85% of epilepsy patients saw significant improvements in their seizures.
Wow.
That's a pretty compelling success rate, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. So how on earth does a diet impact seizures? What's the science behind this?
This is where those mighty mitochondria come in.
Okay.
Most people know them as the powerhouses of our cells.
Right.
But to really grasp their role, we need to understand they don't just passively produce energy. Think of them like incredibly intricate factories, constantly converting fuel into usable energy in the form of ATP.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these factories could be more important than we realize. So how does a ketogenic diet affect them?
Well, the ketogenic diet seems to supercharge two key processes related to mitochondria.
Okay.
First, there's mitophagy, essentially a cellular spring cleaning.
Oh.
Think of it as the cell's way of getting rid of old, worn-out mitochondria and recycling their parts.
Like taking out the cellular trash.
Exactly. And then, to make sure things are running smoothly, there's mitochondrial biogenesis.
Okay.
This is where the cell churns out brand new, healthy mitochondria to replace the old ones.
Wow.
It's like upgrading your energy production system to the latest model.
I'm already impressed, and we're just scratching the surface of what these tiny powerhouses do.
Right.
But hold on a second. Didn't we learn that neurons, the brain's main cells, absolutely love glucose for fuel? Why would we want to reduce glucose if we're trying to optimize brain function?
That's a great question, and it really challenges the simple narrative of neurons need glucose.
Right.
What we're learning is that sometimes high glucose levels might actually be a sign of a deeper metabolic issue, potentially tied to those mitochondrial factories not working at their best.
So it's not that neurons don't need glucose. It's that sometimes they can't use it efficiently because something else is off.
Exactly. It's like trying to run your car on bad gas.
Okay.
It might sputter along for a while, but eventually you're going to have problems.
Right.
The ketogenic diet could be a way to help those neurons access a cleaner, more efficient fuel source.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, but I have a feeling there's even more to this mitochondria story, right? They're not just about energy production.
You have no idea. They're involved in so much more than just keeping the lights on in our cells.
Wow.
Think about those crucial brain chemicals, neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, the ones that control everything from your mood to your focus.
Yeah.
Guess who plays a key role in making sure they're produced and regulated properly?
You're going to tell me it's our little mitochondrial friends, aren't you?
You bet.
Wow.
But that's not all. They also regulate hormones like cortisol, estrogen, and testosterone.
Uh-huh.
They help control inflammation in the brain and body. They even influence how our genes express themselves.
Wow.
It's called epigenetic regulation.
Wow, that's a lot of responsibility for something so tiny. They really are like the master conductors of our cellular orchestra. Okay, so now that we're talking about making changes to our diet, especially something as significant as keto,
Right.
we need to address the elephant in the room, potential downsides.
Yeah,
It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
definitely not.
So what should people be aware of?
Well, one surprising finding is that alcohol and the ketogenic diet, they don't mix well at all.
Okay.
Studies have shown that combining the two can lead to a 5-fold increase in blood alcohol levels.
Whoa. So even a couple of drinks could be incredibly dangerous if you're on keto.
Exactly. It's a stark reminder that any major dietary changes need to be made thoughtfully and with the guidance of a healthcare professional,
Right.
especially if you're dealing with mental health conditions,
Yeah.
where adjusting medications and monitoring side effects are essential.
Okay, that's a really important point. You mentioned hypomania as a potential concern with keto. Can you explain that a bit more?
Sure, hypomania is a state of heightened energy and mood,
Okay.
sometimes to the point where it can be disruptive. It can occur with keto because of how it impacts brain chemistry and hormones.
Mhm.
Dr. Palmer has found that adjusting carbohydrate intake timing,
Okay.
think strategic carb cycling,
Mm-hmm.
and using supplements like melatonin or magnesium can help manage this.
Interesting. So it's not about avoiding keto altogether, but about fine-tuning it to individual needs.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're reaping the benefits without experiencing any negative side effects.
That makes sense. We've talked a lot about how keto impacts mood, energy, even potentially conditions like epilepsy and schizophrenia. But what about hormones?
Yeah,
Is there a difference between how men and women respond to this kind of diet?
there absolutely is. Dr. Palmer has observed that women often have a tougher time with the ketogenic diet.
Really?
And it seems to come down to its fasting mimicking effects.
What kind of challenges are we talking about?
Well, for some women, keto can disrupt their menstrual cycles. There have even been studies showing reduced fertility in female mice on keto. It's definitely something to be mindful of, especially if you're considering pregnancy.
Wow, that's a pretty significant impact. So keto is not something to take lightly, especially for women.
Exactly. It's crucial to work with a knowledgeable healthcare provider to understand the potential impacts.
This is all so eye-opening. We've gone from epilepsy to schizophrenia to hormones, all connected by these amazing mitochondria. It really makes you realize how everything is interconnected in our bodies.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
It highlights the importance of taking a holistic approach to health,
Right.
considering our diet, lifestyle, mental well-being, the whole picture.
I couldn't agree more. Now, before we move on, I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier, semaglutide.
Okay.
It's a new class of drug that's getting a lot of buzz for weight loss.
Yeah.
But it sounds like Dr. Palmer has some reservations about relying solely on medication for this.
He does. While he acknowledges that these drugs can be effective for weight loss in the short term,
Right.
his belief is that we need to address the root cause of metabolic issues. And you guessed it, that often comes back to the health of those mitochondria.
So it's about looking beyond the symptoms and getting to the heart of the matter.
Exactly.
But this all raises a really interesting question for me. If what we eat can so profoundly impact our mental and physical health, can we use this knowledge to go beyond just treating illness?
Mm-hmm.
Could it help us actually optimize our well-being?
That's a fantastic question, and one that deserves its own deep dive.
I like how you think.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take a closer look at how this emerging science is being applied to specific mental health conditions, starting with Alzheimer's disease.
Sounds good to me. Let's dive in. So Alzheimer's disease, it's a devastating condition, and there's still so much we don't know about what causes it, but I'm hearing more and more about the connection between metabolic health and Alzheimer's.
Right.
Is there a link to what we've been talking about?
There could be. While Alzheimer's is incredibly complex, there's growing evidence pointing to metabolic dysfunction, and you guessed it, mitochondrial health playing a role.
Okay, so those tiny powerhouses are back in the spotlight. How are they involved in Alzheimer's?
Well, research has shown that people with Alzheimer's often exhibit something called glucose hypometabolism.
Okay.
It's a mouthful, I know, but basically it means their brain cells aren't using glucose for energy as efficiently as they should.
And we know that mitochondria are crucial for turning glucose into energy. So if they're not functioning optimally, it makes sense that brain cells would struggle.
Precisely. It's like a car running out of gas.
Right.
And here's where the ketogenic diet gets really interesting.
Okay.
Ketone bodies, the alternative fuel source the body produces when it's in ketosis, can actually bypass this glucose metabolism issue.
Wow.
They offer a way to provide those energy-starved brain cells with what they need.
So could the ketogenic diet be a way to fuel those brain cells and potentially slow down the progression of Alzheimer's?
It's a compelling hypothesis. There have been some promising smaller studies indicating cognitive improvements in Alzheimer's patients on a ketogenic diet. But we need larger, more robust clinical trials to know for sure.
That makes sense. We can't get ahead of ourselves, but it's definitely a promising avenue for research.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that recruiting participants for these trials can be challenging. What makes it so difficult?
It's a combination of factors. First, Alzheimer's often affects older individuals who might have a harder time adhering to strict dietary changes.
Yeah.
Especially if they rely on others for meals.
That's a good point. It's one thing to make these changes for yourself, but it's another if you're not in control of your food choices.
Exactly. And then there's the nature of the disease itself. Alzheimer's progresses slowly.
Yeah.
So it can be hard to measure the impact of dietary interventions in the short term.
Right.
Researchers need to track cognitive changes over longer periods, which is complex and expensive.
It's not like epilepsy where you see an immediate reduction in seizures. It's a much more subtle process.
Precisely. But despite these challenges, there's a growing community of researchers and clinicians who are passionate about investigating the potential of the ketogenic diet for Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases.
It's truly inspiring work. Hopefully they'll get the resources needed to conduct those large-scale studies. It would be incredible if a change in diet could have a real impact on people facing these conditions.
It would be groundbreaking. And it's not just about treating existing conditions. This research has the potential to change how we view mental and brain health altogether.
Absolutely. It opens up a whole new frontier of understanding how our lifestyle choices influence our brains.
Yeah.
Speaking of different approaches, we've talked a lot about the ketogenic diet itself, but there's so many variations out there. Is there one that's considered the gold standard, or does it really depend on the individual?
It definitely depends on the individual and their unique needs and goals. There's no one-size-fits-all.
Right.
And working with a healthcare professional to find the right fit is key.
So let's unpack some of these variations. We've covered the classic ketogenic diet, very high fat, moderate protein, and extremely low carb.
Right.
But what are some of the other options?
There's the modified ketogenic diet.
Okay.
It allows for a bit more wiggle room with carbs, usually up to 50 grams per day.
Okay.
This can be easier to stick with for some people, and it still provides many of the benefits of classic keto.
So it's a more flexible approach, but still maintains that focus on keeping carbs low.
Right.
What about people who are vegetarian or vegan? Can they do keto?
Absolutely. Vegetarian and vegan keto diets are definitely possible. They emphasize plant-based fats and proteins.
Okay.
It might take a bit more planning to make sure you're meeting your nutritional needs.
Yeah.
But it's completely doable with some research and guidance.
It seems like there's a way to adapt the principles of keto to just about any dietary preference.
Exactly. And that's where working with a knowledgeable healthcare professional can make all the difference. They can help create a personalized plan that takes into account your unique needs, goals, and any potential risks.
It's not about blindly following some rigid set of rules. It's about finding what works best for you as an individual.
Exactly.
Now, I'm curious, how does Dr. Palmer approach tailoring the ketogenic diet for his patients? Does he have a standard protocol, or is it more of a personalized approach?
Dr. Palmer is all about personalized medicine.
Okay.
He truly believes in meeting each patient where they are and tailoring treatment to their individual needs.
Yeah.
His approach to the ketogenic diet is no different.
So it's not a case of here's the keto diet, good luck.
No.
He actually dives into the individual needs of each person.
Absolutely. He begins by assessing their current diet,
Okay.
their weight, overall health status, and even factors like their willingness to make dietary changes
Right.
and their ability to stick with a specific plan.
That makes sense. People need to buy in and be committed to making these changes for them to truly work.
Right.
But with so many factors to consider, how does he actually tailor the diet?
Think of it like adjusting the dosage of a medication.
Okay.
He might start with a more moderate approach, like simply cutting back on refined carbohydrates and sugars.
So?
Then he'll gradually adjust the macronutrient ratios, the balance of fat, protein, and carbs, based on the patient's response and how their body is producing ketones.
Ketone levels, so he's actually measuring those to see how well the patient is adhering to the diet.
He uses blood ketone monitors to get a real-time snapshot of how well the patient is achieving ketosis.
Oh, wow.
This allows him to make those fine-tune adjustments and make sure the patient is getting the therapeutic benefits.
That's such a cool approach. It's like having a built-in feedback system to guide the dietary changes.
Exactly.
It takes the guesswork out of it and uses data to drive the process.
Right.
I love that. So what kind of results has Dr. Palmer seen using this personalized approach?
He's had some remarkable success stories.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of one patient in particular,
Okay.
a young man in his 30s with schizoaffective disorder. He had struggled for years, even after trying 17 different medications.
Schizoaffective disorder, that's a serious condition. It's characterized by symptoms like hallucinations and delusions, right?
Yes, it can be incredibly challenging to live with. This particular patient had exhausted all the conventional treatment options. Nothing seemed to bring him lasting relief.
Right.
But after starting a ketogenic diet tailored to his needs, he saw a dramatic shift. His hallucinations and delusions decreased, his energy levels went up, and he was able to function at a much higher level.
That's an incredible story. It's almost like the diet was able to provide the relief that medications couldn't.
It speaks to the power of personalized nutrition and the potential of the ketogenic diet to address even the most complex mental health challenges.
It gives me so much hope that we're on the brink of a paradigm shift in how we treat mental health, moving beyond just medication and exploring the profound impact of lifestyle changes like diet.
I agree.
Speaking of lifestyle changes, we've talked a lot about the ketogenic diet, but fasting, both intermittent and longer term, is gaining a lot of attention for its potential benefits.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on fasting and how does it relate to what we've been discussing?
Fasting is fascinating, and there's a growing body of research exploring its effects on both physical and mental health.
Okay.
One of the most interesting connections between fasting and the ketogenic diet is that they both lead to ketosis.
So even though you're not specifically restricting carbohydrates when you fast, you still achieve ketosis because you're not consuming any calories. It's like forcing your body to switch to burning fat for fuel.
Exactly. And the shift to fat burning triggers a wave of metabolic changes that benefit brain function, reduce inflammation, and even boost cellular repair processes.
We talked about mitophagy earlier, that cellular cleanup crew. Does fasting also ramp that up?
It absolutely does. In fact, fasting is one of the most powerful activators of mitophagy.
Wow.
When your body senses it's not getting energy from food, it switches into conservation mode.
Okay. Part of that involves breaking down and recycling old, damaged cellular components, including those tired mitochondria.
It's like giving our cells a deep cleanse and a chance to renew themselves.
Precisely. This cellular rejuvenation is thought to be behind many of the health benefits associated with fasting.
I've heard a lot about the benefits of intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
Improved insulin sensitivity, reduced inflammation, even better cognitive function. Have you seen evidence of these in your own work?
Definitely. Intermittent fasting can be a very powerful tool for improving metabolic health and promoting weight loss.
Okay.
And it can have a significant impact on brain function, especially when it comes to focus and mental clarity.
So it's not just about physical benefits, it actually helps us think better, too.
Exactly. Some studies suggest that intermittent fasting enhances neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and adapt, which is critical for learning and memory.
It's amazing how something as simple as changing when we eat can have such a profound impact on our bodies and minds. It is, and both the ketogenic diet and fasting are tools that can be personalized to fit individual needs and goals.
Yep.
There's no single right way to do it, and working with a healthcare professional to find what works best for you is essential.
Let's delve deeper into that personalization aspect. We discussed different variations of keto, but what about fasting? Are there various ways to approach it?
Absolutely. Intermittent fasting is incredibly flexible and can be implemented in many ways.
Okay.
Some popular methods include time-restricted feeding, where you limit your eating to a specific window of time each day, and alternate day fasting, where you alternate between days of eating normally and days of significantly reducing your caloric intake.
There's a lot of flexibility there depending on individual preferences and lifestyles.
Exactly. That's what makes fasting such a versatile tool. It can be seamlessly integrated into your routine without requiring dramatic changes or feeling overly restrictive.
But what about longer-term fasting? We discussed Dr. Palmer's patient who completed a 7-day water fast and saw incredible improvements in his blood sugar and mood.
Right.
Is that something you'd recommend for everyone?
Longer fasts can be powerful, but they're not for everyone.
Right.
It's crucial to undertake them under the guidance of a qualified healthcare professional. There are potential risks,
Yep.
especially for individuals with certain medical conditions or taking medications.
That makes perfect sense. Not something to jump into lightly, but for those who are healthy and can do it safely, what are some potential benefits of those longer fasts?
Well, as we discussed, longer fasts can significantly boost mitophagy,
Uh-huh.
leading to a more profound cellular cleanup. They can also have a big impact on hormone regulation,
Okay.
often leading to improved insulin sensitivity and reduced inflammation.
It's like hitting the reset button on our metabolism,
Mm-hmm.
giving our bodies a chance to heal and repair.
Exactly. And some people even report heightened mental clarity, increased energy, and a greater sense of well-being after longer fasts.
It's incredible. Fasting sounds like a powerful tool for both physical and mental transformation.
It can be, absolutely, but the key is to approach it with caution and listen to your body.
Yeah.
Fasting isn't about competition.
Right.
It's about finding what truly supports your overall health and well-being.
That's such an important reminder, whether we're talking about the ketogenic diet, fasting, or any other lifestyle intervention. Approaching it with a sense of curiosity, self-awareness, and a willingness to experiment to find what works best for us is key.
I couldn't agree more. We're all individuals, and what works for one person might not work for another. There's no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to health and well-being.
That's so true. Being informed, doing your research, and working with qualified healthcare professionals who can guide you on your individual journey to optimal health is so important.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And when it comes to our health, it's our most valuable asset.
I feel like we've explored so much today, from the fascinating world of mitochondria to the potential of the ketogenic diet and fasting for mental health and beyond. It's been an incredible deep dive.
It has, and I hope our listeners feel inspired to explore this topic further and consider the impact their lifestyle choices can have on their overall well-being.
Speaking of exploring further, I'm wondering if our bodies are so incredibly adaptable and responsive to dietary changes, as we've seen with the ketogenic diet and fasting, what are the implications for treating other conditions beyond just mental health?
That's an excellent question, and one that researchers are actively investigating.
Okay.
There's growing evidence suggesting that metabolic interventions like keto and fasting may hold therapeutic potential for a wide range of conditions, from autoimmune disorders to even cancer.
Wow, that's incredible. It sounds like we're just scratching the surface of understanding the power of nutrition and lifestyle to impact our health.
I believe we are. This is a rapidly evolving field, and I'm excited to see what new discoveries and breakthroughs emerge in the years to come.
Me too. It feels like we're on the cusp of a major paradigm shift in how we view health and wellness, moving away from a reactive, disease-focused model toward a more proactive, prevention-oriented approach.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I think the key to unlocking this potential lies in empowering individuals with the knowledge and tools to take control of their own health destinies.
Couldn't agree more, and I think that's a perfect note to end on: empowering ourselves with knowledge and taking an active role in shaping our health.
Beautifully said.
That's a truly exciting thought, that what we're learning about diet and mental health could have implications for so many other areas.
It is, yeah.
Where do we even begin to unpack that?
It's almost overwhelming to consider the possibilities.
Yeah?
But we're seeing some intriguing research on the potential benefits of the ketogenic diet for conditions like cancer, Parkinson's disease, and even autoimmune disorders.
Let's dive into those one by one. I know these are areas where people are desperately searching for new and effective treatments.
Absolutely.
First up, cancer. What's the connection between keto and this complex disease?
It all comes down to how cancer cells fuel themselves. Unlike healthy cells, which can use a variety of energy sources, most cancer cells rely heavily on glucose.
Okay.
This reliance on glucose is known as the Warburg effect, and it's a weakness we might be able to exploit.
So the idea is that by drastically reducing glucose through a ketogenic diet, we can essentially starve those cancer cells and hinder their growth.
Exactly. It's like cutting off their food supply.
Wow.
What's remarkable is that our healthy cells are much more adaptable.
Yeah.
They can easily switch to using ketone bodies for fuel when glucose is scarce.
So it's about taking advantage of that metabolic difference between healthy cells and those rogue cancer cells.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty ingenious approach, but is there any evidence to back this up?
There's a growing body of preclinical research that's studies done in cells and animals,
Okay.
showing that ketogenic diets can indeed slow tumor growth and even make conventional cancer therapies more effective.
That's encouraging, but I also know that what works in a lab setting doesn't always translate to humans. Are there any human studies looking at the ketogenic diet in cancer?
There are a number of clinical trials underway,
Okay.
but it's still early. We need more research to pinpoint the optimal ketogenic protocols, identify which types of cancer respond best, and understand any potential long-term effects.
It makes sense to be cautious and not overstate the potential benefits until we have more definitive evidence.
Right.
But even the possibility that diet could play a role in cancer treatment is incredibly exciting.
It is. It's a paradigm shift in how we approach cancer. It's not just about targeting the tumor directly. It's about manipulating the metabolic environment to make it less hospitable to cancer growth.
That's truly groundbreaking. Okay, let's move on to Parkinson's disease.
Okay.
What's the connection there?
Parkinson's is a neurodegenerative disorder marked by the loss of dopamine-producing neurons in the brain.
Right.
And remember our discussion about mitochondria being involved in neurotransmitter production.
Yes, they're like the master conductors,
Yeah.
ensuring those crucial brain chemicals are produced and regulated properly.
Exactly. Well, it turns out that mitochondrial dysfunction is a key hallmark of Parkinson's disease.
Interesting.
These damaged mitochondria contribute to oxidative stress and inflammation, further damaging brain cells and accelerating the disease's progression.
So the thought is, if we can improve the health of those mitochondria, we could potentially slow down or even reverse the course of Parkinson's.
That's the hope, and that's where ketogenic diets and fasting come into play.
Go.
These interventions can trigger mitophagy, that cleanup process that removes damaged mitochondria and promote mitochondrial biogenesis, the creation of new, healthy mitochondria.
It's a two-pronged attack, removing the damaged ones and replacing them with healthy new ones. What does the research say about this approach for Parkinson's?
There's encouraging preclinical research
Okay.
indicating that both ketogenic diets and intermittent fasting can protect dopamine neurons and improve motor function in animal models of Parkinson's.
That's promising. Are there any human studies in the works?
There are some small-scale studies suggesting potential benefits for Parkinson's patients following a ketogenic diet or intermittent fasting regimen.
Okay.
But as with cancer, larger, well-designed trials are needed to confirm these initial findings.
It sounds like the research is still emerging, but it's definitely a path worth exploring further.
Absolutely. And what's particularly appealing about these dietary interventions is that they're relatively safe and have minimal side effects when implemented correctly.
It's not like we're talking about experimental drugs with a long list of potential complications.
Right.
It's about using food as medicine,
Mm-hmm.
an approach that empowers individuals to take control of their health.
I love that perspective. It's about reclaiming our health and well-being through the choices we make about how we nourish and care for our bodies.
Okay, one last area I want to touch on is autoimmune disorders.
Okay.
How could keto or fasting potentially benefit people with these conditions?
Autoimmune disorders are incredibly complex.
Yeah.
Essentially, the immune system goes haywire and starts attacking the body's own tissues.
Right. And guess what plays a central role in this process?
If I've learned anything today, it's that inflammation is the common thread running through so many health challenges.
You got it. And both the ketogenic diet and fasting have powerful anti-inflammatory effects.
So the idea is that by reducing inflammation, we can dampen that immune system overreaction and alleviate those autoimmune symptoms.
That's the theory.
Okay.
And research on the use of ketogenic diets and fasting for conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, and even inflammatory bowel disease is showing real promise.
It's amazing how the potential applications just keep expanding. But I have to admit, it's also a lot to take in. Maybe it's time to pause and reflect on everything we've covered today.
I agree. It's been a whirlwind tour of cutting-edge science, and it's easy to get caught up in the excitement of all these potential breakthroughs.
Yeah.
But we need to remember that we're still in the early stages of understanding the intricate connections between diet, metabolism, and health. What's the key message for our listeners? What should they keep in mind as they navigate this ever-evolving field?
I think the most important thing is to approach this information with curiosity and a critical eye. Don't blindly accept everything you hear or read.
Right.
Do your research. Consult with qualified healthcare professionals, and most importantly, listen to your body. It's the best guide you have.
That's fantastic advice. It's about empowering ourselves with knowledge and making informed choices that align with our individual needs and goals.
Exactly, and it's about recognizing that we have more control over our health than we often realize.
Absolutely. The choices we make, what we eat, how we move, how we manage stress, they all have a profound impact on our physical and mental well-being.
And the most exciting part is that we're continuously learning more about how to optimize these choices to live healthier, more vibrant lives.
This deep dive has been truly inspiring. I feel empowered to take charge of my health journey. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been my absolute pleasure. Remember, the journey to optimal health is a lifelong adventure. Never stop exploring, learning, and asking questions.
And until next time, keep diving deep and keep those mitochondria humming.